Stan Gibilisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1GV, coming at you from the Black Hills of South Dakota, United States of America, with some more thoughts on attic antennas for shortwave listening. A viewer recently asked me about several questions, 3 different questions actually, about how to properly ground such a system. And there are certain challenges inherent in that because, of course, most people's attics are nowhere near the ground, or you have trouble with that unless you put a counterpoise all over your whole attic, and then of course you don't want your antenna exactly where your counterpoise is, and it makes for a mess. But that's all assuming that we have unbalanced antenna systems. Unbalanced meaning asymmetrical or coaxial fed. That is, fed with coaxial cable or just an end-fed wire antenna. One side goes to the antenna and the other side goes to ground. You always need 2 terminals for any antenna because it's a circuit. Just like any other circuit, it needs a return path. But I thought of something else. The only glitch in this is that it requires a more sophisticated form of antenna tuner. Also known as a transmatch. You're going to need a transmatch that can deal with a balanced load rather than an unbalanced load. Now, there are plenty of such transmatches available. There is a company called Palstar that makes an excellent balanced load antenna tuner. In fact, it's the true optimum circuit designed for a balanced load or a balanced antenna system. What do I mean by balanced? Well, actually I mean symmetrical. Just as unbalanced can often mean asymmetrical or might alternatively mean asymmetrical. Balanced means symmetrical. So here's your antenna tuner. Let's just say you have a really good antenna tuner with an output intended for parallel wire transmission lines, such as television twin lead, also called ribbon. Remember that old stuff? TV ribbon? Back in the olden days when you had an outdoor television antenna, an analog TV antenna on a mast or tower, oftentimes on your roof with a rotor, and you would receive these channels, particularly in fringe areas. Only until recent years we had that up at our cabin in Wisconsin, in northern Wisconsin, until they forced us to go digital, and then we got satellite television. Twin lead, also another type of line that will meet this criterion, is called ladder line. There's also another version called window line. Window maybe in quotes. Google on those terms: window line, ladder line, twin lead, parallel wire line. Well, I ought to learn how to spell, I guess. Parallel wire line. And you connect that to the balanced output of your antenna tuner and you run it all the way up to your attic. The tuner supposedly is in the cave, your basement, or a lower floor of your house, and that then in turn goes to your radio. But the gist of this whole thing is this tuner. This is the core of the circuit, and the Palstar antenna tuner is intended for ham radio operation up to several hundred watts, but it will also work for shortwave listening. For those of you who have deep pockets, this thing is hundreds of bucks. But it's a great tuner. You can also get cheaper tuners that have balanced outputs, but they're not quite as good as the PALSTAR version for reasons that I won't get into right now. But you run this parallel wire line up to your attic, and then you have a center-fed straight wire antenna. And it's important that this thing be center-fed. It be as symmetrical as you can possibly make it, and the feed line or the parallel wire line, such as, well, for this application you could probably get away with TV ribbon, although I would recommend this stuff called window line as a compromise between TV ribbon and the true ladder line, which is really the very best for transmitting applications. But I'm assuming you're just going to do shortwave listening, SWL, that you're not going to try to transmit with an antenna in your attic. That can present all kinds of problems. It can interfere with home electronics, but to say nothing of the home electronics interfering with your shortwave listening. But unfortunately, you shortwave listeners, in this day and age when profit rules the roost, as it were, and convenience rules over security, and quantity rules over quality, it would seem, we hobbyists are at a profound disadvantage. We just have to work our way through the maze of large corporate influences and government influences, much the same way as our ancestors, the little tiny mammals, worked their way amongst the dinosaurs, crawling between their legs until finally the universe decided that the little mammals ought to prevail and the dinosaurs ought to perish. But that's a whole nother deal, you know, and I'm going to get myself into trouble if I talk like that. People are going to call me a socialist or something like that. Nothing could be further from the truth there. But you want to have a center-fed antenna like this. Alternatively, you can run a loop all the way around your entire attic. And that's automatically going to be center-fed kind of by default. You can run a loop all the way around your whole attic, perimeter of your attic, and then feed it in the center. You don't want to short it out, though. You just want to, say, feed this thing in the center. Here's your tuner. There's your parallel wire line. And there's your loop. And there's your software glitches and the whole business. That's really very interesting. I'm just going to keep on doing this, and you can just keep on, just laugh at me as this software fights me, sort of like alligator wrestling. It's not short-circuited there, trust me on this one. A loop antenna fed in the center with open wire line. Now, the advantage of this is that it needs no RF ground up here at the antenna. You don't need to bother with that. You just ground your radio good and solid with a good electrical ground, and that'll be good enough. The trick, besides this expensive tuner, is that you want this parallel wire line not to run too close to metallic or otherwise conducting obstructions or objects. So my idea of running it near the water pipes wouldn't necessarily work. I could tape coaxial cable to a cold water pipe, but I wouldn't want to tape window line to a cold water pipe. You need to leave a little bit of clearance around that line, and that can be somewhat of a conundrum going from the basement to the attic through your house. But as long as you keep it reasonably far away from obstructions like that, I would say this would be an ideal antenna system for the attic. And once you've managed to install it properly, then your only problem is coming up with the dough to pay for this bloody beast right here, the tuner, which is going to be one that's capable of tuning a ham radio transmitter with hundreds of watts, even though all you're doing is using it to receive signals. Well, that's what I'd probably do, because I have a ham radio, and although I wouldn't transmit with it, I certainly would need it for reception. Stan Gibilisco, W1GV. Signing off for now. I hope you could make sense out of all of this. Till next time, 73, which means best regards in ham radio jargon. Wish me luck with this software, or better yet, pray for me. So long.